Hi everyone, today I'm going to show you how to make this gorgeous flower card. I'm going to start by showing you how to make a really interesting and fun and very easy to make background, a piece of paper if you like, a patterned paper. You could easily make this card using patterned paper, but I'm going to show you how to have lots of painty fun making your own, and then I will show you exactly how to turn it into this gorgeous card. So let the fun begin. So as always, I'm going to talk to you about personalise this, and the chances are you're not going to have the colours of paint that I've got, but please don't let that stop you. Pick your card base, so I'm going with this purple, and then you're going to choose some colours of paint to go with it. And I've picked these. I've got various different makes, as you can see. I've got quite a collection of acrylic paints, some of them older than others, and so I've got a white as one of my accents, and then I've got two shades of purple, a yellow and an orange. So all of these colours, once they're all put together, you will see are going to make a gorgeous background mixed media paper that goes with the purple, which is the base card, and that will become the frame around this mixed media piece of paper that we're going to make. Base card, which will match one of the colours of paint that we're using to create our background paper, is a piece of card that measures 8 inches by 8 inches, and we're going to score it in half at the 4-inch mark. So in effect we're making a DL card base. And then we also have two pieces of card. I'm working in white, you could work in cream or some kind of pale contrast to your background paper, because you want your background papers to stand out. You've got two pieces that measure 3 3/4 inches by 7 3/4 inches. One's going to go on the inside. Then you've got a piece that measures slightly less than that, so that's 3.5 by 7.5, and that's the piece we're going to turn into our background paper, as well as this piece, which will be where we punch out our flowers. This is just a spare piece, so I'm not really going to give you measurements other than to say you need to be able to cut 2 flowers out of it. You'll also need to cut 2 half-inch strips which would fit across the width of the card, and 2 little dots for the flower centres. So we're going to start by creating the background. I've got my 3 colours of paint. I've got orange, I've got yellow, and I've got a slightly lighter shade of purple than the main card itself. This is quite simple to do. You can do it with a brush, or you can do it as I'm doing with your finger, and you can put puddles of the colour randomly over the piece of card. Don't forget to have your baby wipe standing by for when you want to change the colours. And I'm starting out by just adding the colours randomly, and then I'm going to just push those colours out a little bit more to make sure all the white area of card is covered with colour. And then when I've done that, I'm going to take my baby wipe and start to blend. Now, blending the orange and yellow is nice and easy because they like to be blended next to one another. The purple, you just have to be a little bit careful, otherwise things could go a little bit muddy. So I'm really trying just to blend around those edges where one colour leads to another. So obviously I'm going to repeat all of this on my second piece of card. Again, just keeping things nice and random, and this piece will form the background on the main card once it's finished. So again with the baby wipe and coming back in and blending out, you can see how the colour of the purple changes more drastically than that of the yellow and the orange. And at this stage you need to decide whether you need to brighten up those colours a little bit. I wanted to brighten mine, but if you're happy with the colours as they are, you don't need to do it a second time. Just following the same principles, adding colour and then just blending them at the edges. I just wanted to make sure that I couldn't see any of the card through that paint, and my purple paint in particular was a little bit more transparent than the other 2 colours. And once you've got that looking exactly how you want it to, it's time to just give everything a little bit of a blast with the heat gun and dry off those pieces of card, ready to add the next layers. Now with these next layers you can add as many or as few as you like. These are all just suggestions. I'm going to be using this sequin waist, but you will see I'm also going to use different stencils, and I'm adding some little dots all over the surface of my two pieces of card. Now the trick when you're using a stencil and paint, I'm using a piece of foam to pounce that colour through the stencil. I'm making sure that I haven't got too much paint on my little piece of foam. If you've got too much paint and you're putting it through a stencil, you'll find it just bleeds underneath the stencil and makes a bit of a mess rather than the pattern that you're looking for. So it's really quite a small amount of paint on that piece of foam in order to achieve the results that you want. So like I said, you could be using all sorts of things to be making textures and building up layers of texture on your piece. So the next thing I'm going to be using is this Holtz Stencil. I'm not really going to give you names of everything because like I said, you'd be using all the things that you've got in your collection, and it's all about looking at the different things that you're going to do in order to make yourself a gorgeous patterned background. So this time I'm pouncing through with the yellow, where I think that the yellow will stand out, but once I've got a few pieces of this pattern down using the yellow, then I'm going to switch to the orange in different areas of the stencil. So if I want this to stand out obviously against the yellow, I'm going to have to use a different colour, and I'm going to be using a little bit of the orange instead. And you can see how these are starting to build. Now because once we actually put this card together, only small amounts of these backgrounds are going to be showing, you need to keep the detail quite small, if that makes sense. It'll look more apparent once we put this together. If I had great big hearts all over this, for instance, they wouldn't really show up as hearts once you showed or revealed those pieces of paper underneath the mask that we're going to put over. We're going to actually cut out a shape from a piece of card that's going to layer over the top of all this and reveal the detail underneath. And because those areas are quite small, if we add big details as we put these layers together, it won't really show once we do that. So I'm keeping to the smaller areas of my stencils. This time I'm doing hearts, and I'm using the slightly lighter purple and just working in rows like the stencil is across the card. So now I'm beginning to bring in that colour that is going to form the actual card base. I've got a couple of slightly bigger hearts and then back to the small ones. So getting myself a clean baby wipe, and we're going to move on to the next layer. So this time to make our marks, I'm going to use an old pen lid, emphasis on the old, and I am just dotting the lid into the puddle of paint and then using it as a stamp. And you can see I'm just stamping 2 rings at a time, interlinked, and then I'm going to do the same thing in the darker purple colour, and this purple more closely matches the actual card base itself, and instead of making 2 rings I'm going to make 3. And what you find yourself doing is adding all of these little new bits of texture into areas where your eye perceives a slight gap. Next I'm just using a cotton bud, and I'm dabbing into some yellow paint and creating 5 little dots in a row, and I'm working vertically, horizontally and diagonally. They almost look like little caterpillars going across the patterned area. Don't forget to save some of that detail for the very edge of the card, because we're going to reveal the edge of the main card once we put a piece of white card on top. So you do want some of the detail around those, or going off the edges of your card, exactly as you would if you cut out a piece of pattern paper. Next, I'm using an old Disney photo pass, but it could be any kind of credit card or gift card, and I'm just dabbing that and dragging that through the orange paint, and then just creating little hatch patterns, so 3 vertically and 3 horizontally. Again, just finding little spaces to add that new texture. Then I've got a barbecue skewer, could be the end of a paintbrush, to add some little white dots. Again, working in the vertical and the horizontal, exactly the same as I did with the yellow, except this time obviously they are smaller dots and I'm working in the white. Next, a little bit of splatter. No mixed media piece is finished, in my opinion, without a little bit of splatter. So I'm just watering down that darker purple paint slightly and then tapping my paintbrush over my artwork just to flick some little spots of that darker purple over the artwork. And then I'm making sure everything is really dry, because the next step I'm going to be using my black and my white pens, and I need to make sure that paint is thoroughly dry, and so do you if you don't want to ruin your pens. Particularly pay attention to where you've stamped with your pen lids, because it tends to put down a thicker layer of paint. So really make sure that everything is fully dry before you take out your pens. Now the rest is all about the doodling. So I'm working with a white Posca marker and a fine black pen to add these details, and I'm just starting out by highlighting and picking out the details of those little hearts that we put down with the stencil, and I'm drawing around those. And again, these details are entirely up to you. You might not like the doodles that I'm doing, and you might want to create some of your own. And I'm just keeping it nice and simple, adding some little swirls. Nothing greatly artistic, but you can see I'm just really building up lots and lots of interest in this background. Some might say it looks a little bit crazy, but it will all work once we put this card together. Again, just really making sure everything is dry and coming in with my fine black pen. Just adding some little zigzag lines to emphasize that those little dots, those yellow dots, are all in a row. And I'm also just picking out some of the white dots that we made with the sequin waste. Again, putting some swirls through those. And again, repeating that on my second piece of card. Once I'd done that, I decided that I again wanted to emphasize some other details, and I'm drawing around those white rings that we made with the pen lid and also around the hearts. So just outlining them a second time and just emphasizing those ring patterns. You can see it makes it look a little bit more like graffiti once you have finished adding all the details with your pen. And as well as doing those things, I'm just writing some words. I'm just writing love, peace and happiness, just in any little space that I can find to finish off this design. So you can see how fabulous that looks. And now we're going to turn it into a card. So starting out with your spare piece that we reserved for making flowers, we're going to cut 2 1/2-inch strips, which are slightly wider than the width of our card. So we'll be using those for the inner. We're also going to punch some flowers, and I borrowed this and the other punches I'll be using from my mum. So I'm not going to tell you what they're called because they're quite old, and you probably, or you might not be able to get them anymore. So I'm going to suggest that as crafters we've all got our own little flower punches and flower dies that we can use to do this, or you could even put this through your Cricut or silhouette or something similar to cut your flower shapes. Now, you bearing in mind your first flower shape has to be in proportion to your card. You don't want anything really huge and you don't want anything too small. As well as that, I've punched 2 little holes, and I'm keeping the holes, I'm keeping the inside of the holes for the flower centres. And again, you can choose to doodle around your flower shapes. So this is going to be the base of our flower, and we're going to build that up with some other cut out pieces. And I'm just outlining the edges to start with my black pen. And now it's time to start putting this together. So this graffiti layer is going first on to the card base, and I'm going to do that with my Cosmic Shimmer glue, but you could use double-sided tape if you want to. And I'm just making sure that's right in the middle of the card front, and you can see straight away, I mean, it would be great just to put a greeting on here actually as it stands and show all of that lovely work, but I'm going to do something that you might find a little bit more interesting to do. And first of all, we're going to add the 2 paper strips just slightly down from the top, what will be the top and the bottom of the inside of the card. You can see they're slightly longer than that, and I'm just going to cut them to size. And then we're going to add this to the inside of our card, and straight away we've got a gorgeous inner that matches what's going on the outside of the card. Now, when you put the next layer on, I did cut them at 3.5 by 7.5, but I've just slightly overcut it, so I just want to cut it slightly smaller so that you can actually see the pattern on the paper around the outside. So the pattern there becomes the mat. Then we're going to put our flowers into position, and that's going to allow us to draw our flower stems. So taking a pencil, you're going to create 2 arcs, and again, this is all entirely up to you. You don't have to do it exactly as I've done it. You might want to put 3 flowers in a row, all sitting on their own stems, and turn this card into the landscape position if you wanted to. So you can see I've created a double layer which is going to form the stems of these flowers. So almost like an S shape. And then obviously we're going to want to make sure that they come underneath those flowers once they're stuck on, and then we want to draw in some leaves. Again, not being too precious about this, just fitting them in size and shape where they fit into the spaces we've created on the card. And then you want to take a nice sharp craft knife and remove those areas. So removing the stem first, following that curve and just cutting the top and the bottom to remove the area which is going to form the stem. And you can see now what we're going to be doing. We're going to be revealing that pattern underneath by taking out the details of the stem and the leaves. I'm sure you can come up with lots of other designs based on this principle of cutting shapes out of a top layer to reveal that gorgeous mixed media layer underneath. Again, for my second stem and my second set of leaves. Nice and easy to do. Take it steady with your craft knife and nice organic stems and leaves. Just erase any pencil lines that you've got left. And then I'm choosing to add a little bit more doodling, again with my fine black pen, and I'm just dotting and dashing around the edge of the stems. So literally little dots and dashes randomly around each of the stems and leaves. You can use any form of doodling that you want to do this. So as well as going around the stems, I'm also going to go right around the edge of the card. You can see how that's going to look. So the stems are going to reveal the work underneath, and then we're going to stick the flowers on top. So the next thing that you need to decide is whether you're going to stick that flat to your artwork. Perhaps if you're posting this card you might want to do that, or you're going to lift the artwork away from that base layer, or the stencil I'm going to call it, where lift the stencil layer away from the artwork layer, creating another area of dimension. Now when you add your foam tape to the back of this, if that's what you're choosing to do, just make sure that you support those finer areas where the leaf joins the stem. And make sure that when you place these pieces down that you can't see them protruding over the edge of your cutout areas. And then once you've taken all the backing off your foam tape, you can stick it into position on your card. And then I'm going to doodle around the inside of the card so it matches the outside. Looks like I'm doing Morse code when I'm watching this back. Dot dot dash dash dot 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 dash dash dash. Hope I'm not saying anything too offensive. Now I'm not going to actually stamp any greeting in this, quite something I do quite often. Don't add the greeting till I know who I'm going to send the card to. But I am going to doodle with some white dots around the edges of my flowers. And then I'm going to shape those flowers and stick them into position on the card. So I'm literally just slightly curling and cupping those petals upwards. And we're also going to use some other flowers that I've punched out. I've got a daisy which is cut from the same colour as the purple card base. I'm just putting some dots down the petals. And you could use other punches, or you could actually just use paper flowers just to create some layers, and you need to contrast the colours and the shapes of the flower. And I'm finishing with a little small flower in the white into the centre, and finishing off with those little dots that we cut out of the graffiti paper to finish off. So there you have it, one mixed media flower card. It's great fun to do, it's really easy, and I hope you'll agree it's a very effective, gorgeous card, suitable for lots and lots of occasions. Could be a thank you card, could be a happy birthday card, it could be anything. And I just love how that graffiti shows through the reveal and the punched shapes of the flowers. So a happy card, and I really hope that you've enjoyed this video enough to share it with your friends. And of course, don't forget, if you're new around here, to hit that subscribe button so that you'll be the first to know next time I post a video. Thank you for joining me for this creativity. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you for watching. As usual, I like to leave you with some links to some more creativity. If you want to know how to make this gorgeous mermaid canvas, then this video will show you exactly how. Perhaps this is more to your taste, something a little bit romantic. You could give this for Valentine's Day, for instance. I'll show you how to take your graphic 45 papers and make this little home decor piece. And of course, if you want to do more mixed media, you might want to do an art journal page, and I have a playlist for those. And last but not least, you might not know, but I do have an Etsy shop where I sell online tutorials for more complicated projects, and I'll show you exactly how to cut and build this gorgeous pyramid mini. It opens up to reveal lots of surprises within and can be decorated to suit anybody's style. It's a really great thing to make to give as a gift to mark a special occasion. You can see how gorgeous this one looks once it's all opened up. And as well as the pyramid shape itself, you get a little mini album inside where you can put the photographs to mark that special occasion. So if you want to be able to make one like this, then pop over to my Etsy shop. I'll see you over there.